The morning sun cast long shadows through the wide windows of Classroom 7B at Galactic Academy. Professor Veltan checked his notes one more time, his four-fingered hands shaking slightly. Today was the day he had been dreading for weeks. Today he would show his students the most terrifying creature in the known galaxy. The Kalari professor's green skin had turned pale yellow with worry. His large, gentle eyes darted nervously between his students and the covered cage in the corner. 23 young beings from different worlds sat in their seats, chattering happily about their morning meals and weekend plans. They had no idea what was coming. Kim Soo-young adjusted her translation device and smiled at her friend Ryu Seo-jun. The crystalline being's surface sparkled in the morning light as he shared a joke in his musical voice. Near the back, 3 Vortani. Students floated in their environmental suits, their gaseous forms swirling with contentment. And then there was Lee Do-hyun. The human sat in the middle row, looking just like any other student. His dark hair was messy from sleep, and he wore the standard academy uniform. He seemed so normal, so harmless. None of his classmates suspected that he was the most dangerous thing in the room. Professor Veltan cleared his throat. "Students, please take your seats. Today we begin our unit on dangerous predators." The happy chatter died down. Even the word predator made most students uncomfortable. In their peaceful worlds, such creatures were the stuff of nightmares and ancient stories. "I want you all to stay calm," Professor Veltan continued, his voice getting higher with nervousness. "What I am about to show you has been approved by the Academy Safety Board. The creature is safely contained behind triple-layer energy shields." Whispers spread through the classroom. "Creature? What creature?" Do-hyun looked up from his notebook with mild interest. He had been doodling pictures of the strange purple trees he had seen outside his dormitory window. "Are we going to see some kind of animal today, Professor?" The innocent question made Professor Veltan's tail twitch with fear. "Yes, Mr. Lee. We are going to observe a Catherian shadow stalker." The reaction was instant. Kim Soo-young gasped and covered her mouth. Ryu Seo-jun's crystalline form began to dim with terror. The 3 Vortani students immediately huddled together, their gaseous forms swirling with panic. "A shadow stalker?" whispered one of the Kalari students. "Here? In our classroom?" "Professor, are you sure this is safe?" asked another student, already pushing his chair back from his desk. Professor Veltan nodded quickly, though he did not look convinced himself. "The Academy's top security team spent 3 days preparing for this. The creature cannot escape. But I must warn you, what you are about to see may disturb you greatly." He walked slowly toward the covered cage. Each step seemed to take enormous effort. The Shadow Stalker is from Kither Prime, a death world in the Outer Rim. This creature represents everything we fear about predators. It hunts in complete darkness. It can see heat signatures from half a mile away. Its claws can cut through solid metal. Students began to whimper. Some covered their eyes. Others started to pray in their native languages. "Its saliva is highly acidic," Professor Veltan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "It can dissolve flesh in seconds. It has no mercy, no compassion. It exists only to hunt and kill." The professor's hand trembled as he reached for the cover. "I will now show you this creature. Please remain calm. Do not make sudden movements. Do not make loud noises." He pulled away the cover. The classroom erupted in screams. The shadow stalker was about the size of a large house cat, but that was where any resemblance to harmless creatures ended. Its sleek black body seemed to absorb light. 6 red eyes glowed like tiny suns in its angular head. Razor-sharp claws extended from its paws as it paced restlessly in its cage. When it opened its mouth, rows of needle-like teeth gleamed with acidic drool. Students scrambled over each other to reach the exits. Kim Soo-young fainted and slumped in her chair. Ryu Seo-jun's crystalline form began cracking with stress. The Vortani students were spinning so fast in their panic that their environmental suits' alarms started beeping. In the chaos, only one student remained calm. Do-hyun leaned forward in his seat, studying the creature with genuine curiosity. "Oh, wow," he said, his voice cutting through the screams. "It's actually kind of cute." The screaming stopped. Every eye in the classroom turned to stare at the human in disbelief. "Cute?" Professor Veltan stammered. "Mr. Lee, this is the most dangerous predator we have ever brought to this academy. It could kill every being in this room in under 30 seconds. Do-hyun tilted his head, still watching the shadow stalker. "Really? It just looks like an angry ferret to me. Look at those little paws, and the way its tail swishes when it's annoyed." Professor Veltan felt faint. Several students who had been trying to escape stopped and stared in horror at their human classmate. "Mr. Lee," the professor said carefully, "perhaps you do not understand. This creature's homeworld is classified as a Class 8 death world. Nothing more dangerous exists in our known galaxy." Do-hyun nodded thoughtfully, then raised his hand politely. "Professor, could we maybe see 2 more? You know, for comparison purposes. It's hard to understand what makes this one special if we don't have anything to compare it to." The silence that followed was deafening. Professor Veltan's legs gave out, and he had to grab his desk for support. In the cage, the shadow stalker seemed to sense something different about the human. It stopped pacing and stared at Do-hyun with all 6 of its glowing eyes. Two more?" Professor Veltan whispered. "Well, yeah," Do-hyun said, as if it was the most reasonable request in the world. "I mean, if this is supposed to be the most dangerous predator in the galaxy, I'd love to see what the second and third most dangerous ones look like. It would really help me understand the lesson better." Kim Soo-young, who had just started to wake up from her faint, heard this and immediately passed out again. The shadow stalker pressed itself against the side of its cage, closest to Do-hyun. Its acidic drool hissed as it hit the floor. But instead of the hunting pose it usually took, the creature seemed confused, as if it was trying to figure out what exactly it was looking at. Professor Veltan realized he had a much bigger problem than he had thought. The most dangerous thing in his classroom was not the caged predator from a death world. It was the student who thought that predator looked cute and wanted to see 2 more just like it. The emergency call reached Park Min-ho's office within minutes. As head of the xenobiology department, he had dealt with many classroom incidents before: spilled chemicals, fainting students, even the occasional equipment malfunction. But this was different. "Sir, you need to come to classroom 7B immediately," the voice crackled through his communicator. "We have a situation with the human student." Min-ho sighed and saved his research files. He had been expecting something like this eventually. When the academy had accepted its first human exchange student, everyone knew there would be challenges. Humans came from what the galactic databases called a death world, though most faculty members did not really understand what that meant. The hallway outside classroom 7B was chaos. Students from 3 different species huddled together, some crying, others rocking back and forth in shock. Medical staff moved between them, checking vital signs and administering mild sedatives. Minho pushed through the crowd and entered the classroom. He found Professor Veltan sitting behind his desk, staring blankly at the wall. In the corner, the shadow stalker paced in its cage, more agitated than usual. And there, calmly sketching in his notebook, sat Lee Do-hyun. "Mr. Lee," Minho said carefully, "could you step outside for a moment?" Do-hyun looked up from his drawing. "Oh, hi, Professor Park. Sure, no problem." He gathered his things and followed Minho into the hallway, seemingly unaware of the terrified stares from other students. They walked to an empty classroom. Minho closed the door and turned to face the young human. Do-hyun sat down and pulled out his notebook again, continuing his sketch of the shadow stalker. "So," Minho began, "I heard you found today's lesson interesting." "Oh yes, very much," Do-hyun replied enthusiastically. "I've never seen anything like that creature before. The way its eyes reflect light is fascinating. And did you notice how its muscles bunch when it prepares to pounce? The power-to-weight ratio must be incredible." Minho felt a chill run down his spine. "Mr. Lee, do you understand what a shadow stalker is?" "Well, Professor Veltan said it's a predator from a death world," Do-hyun said, still drawing. "But honestly, it seems pretty normal to me. I mean, it's obviously built for hunting, but so are lots of animals." "Lots of animals?" Minho repeated weakly. "Sure. Cats, dogs, birds of prey, sharks, wolves." Do-hyun looked up. "Wait, do you not have predators on your worlds?" This was the conversation Minho had been dreading. "Mr. Lee, I think there's something you need to understand about the rest of the galaxy." For the next hour, Minho explained galactic civilization to the human student. Most spacefaring species had evolved on peaceful worlds. They were herbivores, filter feeders, or energy absorbers. They had developed technology and space travel because they were curious and cooperative, not because they needed to fight for survival. "So you're saying," Do-hyun said slowly, "that most of my classmates come from worlds where nothing hunts anything else?" "Exactly. For them, the concept of predation is pure nightmare fuel. It's why Professor Veltan was so nervous. He was showing them something that represents their deepest, most primal fears." Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. "But it's just a small animal doing what it evolved to do. How is that scary?" Minho pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's galactic classification. "Mr. Lee, your homeworld is rated as a Class 12 death world. That's the highest rating in our system. Most of us assumed that no intelligent life could possibly evolve on such a dangerous planet." "Dangerous?" Do-hyun laughed. "Earth isn't that bad. Sure, there are some animals you need to be careful around, but humans have been living there for thousands of years." "Some animals you need to be careful around," Minho repeated. "Mr. Lee, could you tell me about these animals?" Do-hyun's face lit up. "Oh, where do I start?" "Well, there are big cats like tigers and lions. They're amazing hunters. Tigers can leap over 20 feet and take down prey much larger than themselves. Then there are sharks in the oceans. Some species can detect electrical impulses from other animals' nervous systems. And bears. Bears are incredible. They can run 40 miles per hour and have the strength to flip over cars." With each example, Minho felt more horrified. These creatures live on your world, alongside humans?" Well, not exactly alongside us, Do-yun said. Most of them avoid human settlements. But yeah, they're out there. Oh, and there are smaller dangerous ones too. Some spiders have venom that can kill an adult human in minutes. There are snakes that can strike faster than the human eye can follow. Poison dart frogs that are so toxic that touching them can be deadly. Minho had to sit down. How do humans survive? We're pretty good at avoiding dangerous situations, Do-hyun said with a shrug. Plus, we're not exactly helpless. Humans are persistence hunters. We can track prey for days, running them down until they collapse from exhaustion. We don't have claws or fangs, but we're smart and we work together. The casual way Do-yun described humans as predators made Minho's blood run cold. You hunt other animals? Well, not so much anymore. Most humans get their food from farms and stores now. But our ancestors definitely hunted. Some people still do it for sport or food. Do-yun paused. Wait, are you okay? You look a little pale. Meanwhile, back in classroom 7B, Kim Soo-young was slowly recovering from her second fainting spell. The medical staff had given her a mild stimulant, and she was trying to process what she had witnessed. He said it looked cute, she whispered to Ryu Seo-jun. The shadow stalker. He called it cute. Ryu Seo-jun's crystalline form was still showing stress fractures. How is that possible? Doesn't he understand what it is? Maybe humans just see things differently, suggested one of the Vortani students. Her gaseous form was still swirling. Nervously in her environmental suit, Professor Veltan overheard them. Different is an understatement, he said quietly. I've been teaching xenobiology for 30 years. I've studied predators from 17 different death worlds, and I've never met any being who looked at a shadow stalker and asked to see two more. Kim Soo-young thought about all the times she had studied with Do-hyun. He had always seemed so calm, so peaceful. During emergency drills, while other students panicked, he just followed instructions with mild interest. During combat training, simulations, he performed better than anyone else, but he never seemed to enjoy it the way competitive students did. What kind of world creates people like that? She wondered aloud. Professor Veltan was wondering the same thing. He had pulled up Earth's file on his computer and was reading through the biological survey data. The list of predatory species was so long that it crashed his display twice. How, he muttered to himself, did anything intelligent evolve in that nightmare? Back in the empty classroom, Minho was learning more about Earth than he ever wanted to know. Do-hyun had moved on to describing pack hunters. Wolves are probably the most impressive, he was saying. They work together to take down prey much larger than themselves. They can coordinate attacks across miles of territory, and they're incredibly smart. They can learn and adapt their hunting strategies. And humans coexist with these creatures? Oh, we do better than coexist, Do-hyun said cheerfully. We domesticated them. Dogs are descended from wolves. Most human families keep them as companions and pets. Minho stared at the human student in disbelief. You keep predators as pets? Well, they're not really predators anymore. Thousands of years of selective breeding made them friendly and loyal to humans, although some breeds still have pretty strong hunting instincts. Do-hyun grinned. My family has a German shepherd back home. She's great with kids, but she could probably take down an intruder if she needed to. The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Minho's communicator. Professor Park, this is Medical Bay. We have 17 students being treated for acute anxiety and stress reactions. What exactly happened in Professor Veltan's class? Minho looked at Do-yun, who was now sketching what appeared to be a wolf in the margins of his notebook. I'm beginning to understand, Minho said into his communicator, and I think we're going to need a much bigger medical staff. 3 days later, Professor Veltan stood outside his classroom, holding a bottle of anti-anxiety medication and questioning every decision that had led him to this moment. Against all common sense, he had agreed to let Lee Do-yun give a presentation about Earth's animals. Choi Hana, the station's chief medical officer, checked her equipment one more time. I've got sedatives ready for 15 different species, she told Professor Veltan, plus emergency revival stims and 3 trauma counselors on standby. Maybe we should cancel this, Professor Veltan said for the 20th time. After what happened with the Shadow Stalker? The department heads want to understand what we're dealing with, Choi Hana replied. They need to know exactly how dangerous this human really is. Inside the classroom, the atmosphere was tense. Only half the usual students had shown up. The others had filed medical exemptions or simply refused to attend. Those who remained sat as far from the front as possible, with Kim Soo-young being the only one brave enough to sit in the second row. Ryu Seojun's crystalline form was still showing stress cracks from the previous encounter. He had wrapped himself in a specialized healing cloth, but every few minutes, tiny fragments would chip off and tinkle to the floor. Do-yun entered the classroom with a cheerful smile, carrying a data tablet and a cup of coffee. He seemed completely unaware of the fear and tension surrounding him. "Good morning, everyone," he said brightly. "I'm really excited to share some information about Earth's wildlife with you. I've put together what I think is a nice overview of our ecosystem." Professor Veltan took his medication and nodded weakly. "Please proceed, Mr. Lee, but remember, if anyone shows signs of distress—" "Of course, Professor. I'll start with some of the gentler animals from my world." Do-hyun activated his presentation. The first image showed a group of dolphins leaping through ocean waves. Several students immediately gasped. "These are dolphins," Do-hyun said warmly. "They're some of my favorite animals. They're incredibly intelligent, probably smarter than most humans in some ways. They use complex communication, they play games, and they even have names for each other." Kim Soo-young raised a shaky hand. They look peaceful." "Oh, they are. Mostly." Do-yun's smile widened. "They're also apex predators in their environment. They hunt in coordinated groups, using echolocation to track prey in complete darkness. They can ram into other animals at 40 miles per hour, which is usually enough to kill instantly." The 3 Vortani students began spinning faster in their environmental suits. "But the really impressive thing," Do-yun continued, "is how they play with their food. Sometimes they'll catch a fish and toss it back and forth between them before eating it. Scientists think it might be a form of entertainment." Professor Veltan made a strangled sound. Do-hyun moved to the next slide, showing a herd of elephants. "Now these are some of Earth's gentle giants. Elephants are mostly herbivores, so they should be easy for you to relate to." This got a few relieved nods from the herbivorous students. "An adult elephant weighs about 6 tons and can live for 70 years. They're incredibly social and emotional. They mourn their dead and have complex family structures." Do-hyun's voice was full of genuine affection. "They're also strong enough to uproot trees with their trunks and can crush a car flat without much effort. Oh, and they have excellent memories. If something threatens their family, they'll remember it for decades and attack on sight." Ryu Seojun lost another fragment from his crystalline form. "Moving on to one of Earth's most successful predators," Do-yun said, advancing to a picture of a massive brown bear. This is a grizzly bear. They're omnivores, which means they eat both plants and meat. The bear in the image was standing on its hind legs, towering over a human for scale. Students began whimpering. Grizzlies can run up to 40 miles per hour, which is faster than any human. They have claws that are 6 inches long and strong enough to tear through steel. Their bite force is over 1,000 pounds per square inch. Do-hyun paused to sip his coffee. But here's the really amazing part. They can smell food from 20 miles away. Their sense of smell is 2,000 times better than a human's. One of the Kalari students raised a trembling hand. How big do they get? The largest recorded. Grizzly was over 10 feet tall and weighed 1,500 pounds. But that's nothing compared to polar bears. They're even bigger, and they specialize in hunting other large predators. Choi Hana began preparing sedatives. Now let me show you some of Earth's smaller predators, Do-hyun said, moving to a new section of his presentation. These might seem less impressive, but they're actually incredibly efficient killers. The next image showed a house cat sitting in a sunny window. Cats are probably Earth's most successful predators, Do-hyun said proudly. Domestic cats kill billions of small animals every year, just for fun. They don't even need to be hungry to hunt. Kim Soo-young stared at the innocent-looking creature on the screen. It looks so small and harmless. That's part of what makes them so effective. Cats have retractable claws that are sharp enough to climb vertical surfaces. They have excellent night vision, perfect hearing, and reflexes that are about 6 times faster than human reflexes. Do-hyun zoomed in on the cat's face. See those eyes? They're positioned for binocular vision, which gives them perfect depth perception for tracking prey. And those teeth are designed for delivering precise killing bites. Professor Veltan began, fanning himself with his notes. Of course, domestic cats are nothing compared to their wild cousins, Do-hyun continued cheerfully. Tigers are solitary hunters that can take down prey weighing over 1,000 pounds. They can leap horizontally for over 30 feet and vertically for 12 feet. And they're ambush predators, so their prey usually never sees them coming. Presentation continued with images of lions, leopards, and jaguars. Each description was delivered in Do-hyun's same enthusiastic educational tone, as if he was discussing flowers or butterflies instead of apex predators. Now let's talk about pack hunters, he said, bringing up a photo of wolves surrounding a deer. Wolves are incredibly sophisticated. They have complex social hierarchies, long-term planning abilities, and they can coordinate attacks across vast territories. Ryu Seojun was now losing crystalline fragments at an alarming rate. Choi Hana moved closer with a repair kit. A wolf pack can bring down animals 10 times their size through teamwork and persistence. They'll chase prey for miles, taking turns. So the pack never gets tired while their target exhausts itself. Do-hyun seemed genuinely impressed by this. They communicate through howls that can be heard for miles, and they can track scents that are days old. One of the Vortani students stopped spinning entirely, which in their species indicated complete shock. But I think my favorite predators are the ocean dwellers, Do-hyun said, switching to underwater footage. Sharks have been perfect killing machines for millions of years. They barely needed to evolve because they were already so good at what they do. The image showed a great white shark with its mouth open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Great whites can detect electrical impulses from other animals' nervous systems. They can sense a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And those teeth? They're replaced constantly throughout their lives. A single shark can go through 30,000 teeth. Kim Soo-young raised her hand with visible effort. Mr. Lee, how do humans survive on a world with all these creatures? Do-hyun paused, looking genuinely puzzled by the question. Well, we're pretty good survivors ourselves. Humans are persistence hunters, which means we might not be the fastest or strongest, but we never give up. We can track animals for days, running them down until they collapse from exhaustion. The room went completely silent. Plus, we're tool users, and we hunt in groups. Early humans could coordinate attacks on animals much larger than themselves. We're also incredibly adaptable. Humans live in every environment on Earth, from frozen tundra to burning deserts. Professor Veltan finally found his voice. Mr. Lee, are you saying that humans are also predators? Well, yeah, Do-hyun said, as if this should be obvious. How else do you think we survived long enough to develop technology? Earth is basically a giant competition between different types of predators. Humans won because we're the smartest and most cooperative. The medical alarm on Choi Hana's equipment began beeping. 3 students had just registered vital signs indicating severe shock. But don't worry, Do-hyun added helpfully. Modern humans are much more civilized. We mostly get our food from stores now. Though some people still hunt for sport or food. He looked around the classroom, finally noticing that half his audience appeared to be in various stages of medical crisis. Should I continue with the section on venomous species? Captain Nam Ji-hoon received the first complaint at 800 hours, just as he was finishing his morning security briefing. By 1200 hours, he had 17 more on his desk. By evening, the number had grown to 43 formal complaints from various species representatives. A Deathworlder predator is terrorizing our children, read one complaint from the Kalari Parents Association. Our offspring refuse to attend classes where this creature is present. The human has demonstrated clear signs of predatory behavior, stated another from the Nethys Cultural Council. It shows interest in violent creatures and asks to see more dangerous specimens. We demand immediate action, concluded a third, from the Vortani Elder Circle. This being poses a clear threat to station safety. Captain Nam rubbed his temples. He had read Lee Do-hyun's files extensively when the human first arrived. The young man had excellent grades, no history of violence, and glowing recommendations from his professors on Earth. He was, by all accounts, a model student. But the galaxy's other species saw something different when they looked at him. The captain's communication device chimed. Sir, we have another incident in the recreational area. The human is playing games. Nam sighed and headed for the elevator. The recreational area was in chaos when he arrived. Professor Kang Hee-won from the Comparative Psychology Department was standing beside a large view screen, looking fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Around her, students from various species huddled together, staring at Lee Do-hyun with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. Do-hyun sat casually in a chair, watching something on his personal tablet and occasionally laughing. What's the situation, Professor Kang? Captain Nam asked quietly. The human is engaging in what he calls recreational activities, she replied, not taking her eyes off Do-hyun. I asked him to demonstrate typical Earth entertainment to help us understand human psychology better. And Professor Kang gestured toward the view screen, which was mirroring Do-hyun's tablet display. He's watching something called a horror movie. It appears to be designed to create fear and anxiety in the viewer. For entertainment. Captain Nam looked at the screen and immediately regretted it. The image showed humans being chased by some kind of monster through a dark building. People were screaming, running, and getting caught by the creature in graphic detail. The audience was supposed to find this fun. He's also shown us examples of what humans call extreme sports. Professor Kang continued. Activities where humans deliberately put themselves in mortal danger for enjoyment. Base jumping, rock climbing without safety equipment, swimming with sharks. On the screen, Do-hyun's movie showed a particularly violent scene. Several alien students gasped and covered their eyes. Do-hyun chuckled and reached for his drink. "There's more," Professor Kang said. He showed us recordings of human competitive fighting. Two humans voluntarily enter a confined space and attempt to cause each other physical harm until one cannot continue. The humans watching this cheer and appear to enjoy it greatly. Captain Nam felt a chill. Gladiatorial combat? But that's been banned by galactic law for thousands of years. According to the human, it's one of their most popular forms of entertainment. They have global competitions with millions of viewers. Lee Jin-soo, one of the Vortani students, floated closer to them. His gaseous form was swirling with agitation. "Captain, how can we be expected to coexist with a being that finds violence entertaining? What does this say about human psychology?" Before Captain Nam could answer, Do-hyun looked up from his tablet with a bright smile. "Oh, hi, Captain. Professor Kang asked me to share some Earth entertainment. I was just showing everyone some classic horror films. This one's about a creature that hunts humans through a research station. It's a great example of suspense building and creature design." The casual way he described humans being hunted and killed made several students back away. "Mr. Lee," Captain Nam said carefully, "do you understand that most species find violence disturbing rather than entertaining?" Do-hyun paused his movie and looked genuinely confused. "Really? But it's just fictional violence. Nobody's actually getting hurt. It's like playing pretend, but with special effects." "But why would you want to pretend that people are being hurt?" asked Kim Soo-young, who had been brave enough to attend this demonstration. "Well, it's exciting," Do-hyun explained. "The fear response can be fun when you know you're actually safe. It's like a controlled adrenaline rush. Plus, horror movies often have really creative monsters and interesting survival scenarios." Professor Kang made notes furiously. "Fascinating. So humans actively seek out fear responses for pleasure?" "Sure. Horror movies, roller coasters, bungee jumping, haunted houses." Do-hyun began listing activities that made the alien students increasingly uncomfortable. "Anything that gets your heart racing in a safe environment." "Speaking of which," he continued enthusiastically, "want to see some footage from last year's Mixed Martial Arts Championship? The techniques these fighters use are incredible." "No!" several students shouted at once. Do-hyun looked hurt. "Oh, okay. How about some nature documentaries instead? I have some great footage of predator-prey interactions in the wild." The suggestion that they watch actual hunting footage caused 3 more students to leave the area entirely. Dr. Bae Yuna from the xenobiology lab had been quietly observing from the back of the room. She approached Captain Nam with a concerned expression. "Captain, I've been analyzing the human's physiological data from his medical examinations," she said quietly. "The results are disturbing." "How so?" "His reaction times are approximately 3 times faster than our station average. His cardiovascular efficiency suggests an endurance capacity that exceeds our measuring equipment. And his bone density and muscle fiber composition indicate physical capabilities that are frankly superhuman by galactic standards." Captain Nam frowned. "Are you saying he's genetically enhanced?" "No, This appears to be baseline human physiology, but Captain... Dr. Bay paused. His brain scans show activity patterns in regions associated with tactical thinking and threat assessment that are constantly active. Even during rest periods, his mind is unconsciously analyzing his environment for potential dangers and escape routes. What does that mean? It means his brain is hardwired for survival in a hostile environment. He's not choosing to be a predator, Captain. Evolution made that choice for him millions of years ago. Across the room, Do-Yun had switched to showing pictures on his tablet. "These are my pets back home," he was saying cheerfully. "This is my dog, Max. He's a German Shepherd mix." The image showed a large, wolf-like creature with pointed ears and intelligent eyes sitting next to Do-Hyun's family. "That's a domesticated predator," whispered Ryu Seo-jun, his crystalline form beginning to crack again. "He keeps a domesticated predator in his home." "Oh, Max is great with kids," Do-Hyun said, apparently hearing the comment. "He's really gentle and friendly, although he did chase off a burglar once. The guy jumped our fence and Max cornered him until the police arrived." The casual mention that humans kept guard predators in their homes to deal with other humans who might pose threats was the final straw for many students. "Here's a picture of Max playing with my little sister," Do-Hyun continued, swiping to the next image. "And here he is with a tennis ball. He loves fetch. Sometimes he'll play for hours without getting tired." Professor Kang leaned over to Captain Nam. "The human speaks of living with a predator the way we might discuss a houseplant," she whispered. "He has no concept of how terrifying this is to other species." Captain Nam watched as more students quietly left the recreational area. Those who remained seemed torn between fascination and horror at the glimpse into human life. "Mr. Lee," the captain said finally, "perhaps we should continue this cultural exchange another time." "Oh, sure," Do-Yun said, packing up his tablet. "I hope this was helpful. I have lots more videos if anyone wants to learn about human culture. I've got some great documentary footage about persistence hunting and some really cool military history stuff." The remaining students fled. Captain Nam was left standing with Professor Kang and Dr. Bay, watching the oblivious human gather his things. "We have a problem," Dr. Bay said quietly. "He doesn't understand what he is. To him, this is all normal. He has no idea that he's the most dangerous thing on this station." "More dangerous than the Shadow Stalker?" Captain Nam asked. "Captain," Professor Kang said thoughtfully, "the Shadow Stalker is a simple predator. It kills to eat. But humans? They're predators who learn to think, to plan, to cooperate. They're predators who domesticated other predators and convinced them to hunt alongside them. They're predators who create fictional scenarios about being hunted just for entertainment." She paused, watching Do-Hyun wave goodbye cheerfully as he left the recreational area. "The Shadow Stalker might kill you," she continued, "but a human could reshape your entire world and make you thank them for it. And the terrifying part is, they might not even realize they're doing it." The alarm started at 0347 hours, cutting through the peaceful quiet of the station's night cycle. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in flashing red as the automated voice began its urgent announcement. "Containment breach in restricted laboratory. 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill." Director Oh Shung-min was awake and dressed within minutes. As he rushed toward the command center, his worst fears were confirmed by the updates flooding his communication device. A power fluctuation had caused multiple containment failures in the station's most dangerous xenobiology lab. The creatures that had escaped were not like the shadow stalker that Professor Veltan had shown his class. These were specimens from the deepest, darkest corners of the galaxy. Andromedan void runners, creatures so dangerous that they were usually studied only through remote observation. Helios plasma worms that could melt through solid metal, and worst of all, a pack of nightmare wraiths that could phase through solid matter. In the command center, Captain Nam was coordinating the evacuation while his security teams tried to contain the situation. "Sir, we've lost contact with Security Team Alpha," reported one of his officers. "The Void Runners took them down before they could establish a perimeter." "What about the students?" Director O asked. "Most dormitories have been evacuated to the safe zones, but—" Captain Nam hesitated. "We have reports of several students still trapped in their quarters in Section C. The nightmare wraiths are blocking the evacuation routes." Through the chaos of alarms and radio chatter, a calm voice cut through. "Excuse me, is there anything I can do to help?" Everyone turned to see Lee Do-yun standing in the doorway, fully dressed despite the early hour. He looked alert but not panicked, as if he had simply woken up to check on an interesting noise. "Mr. Lee, you need to get to the safe zones immediately," Director O said. "This is an extremely dangerous situation." "I can see that," Do-yun replied, studying the tactical displays showing the escaped creatures' locations. "Those look like pack hunters," he said, pointing to the Void Runner signals. "And those phase shift patterns suggest ambush predators." Captain Nam stared at the human. While his trained security officers were struggling to understand the creature's behavior, Do-yun had analyzed their movement patterns in seconds. "Mr. Lee, how do you—" "I grew up around predators," Do-yun said simply. "These things are following classic hunting behaviors. The pack hunters are trying to drive prey toward the ambush predators. It's a pincer movement." On the tactical display, the creature movements suddenly made terrifying sense. "If you let me help," Do-yun continued, "I might be able to predict where they'll strike next." Before Director O could respond, another urgent report came through. "Sir, the creatures have cornered a group of students in Dormitory C7. Security Team Beta is pinned down and cannot reach them. Han Ji-woo was among those trapped students. The Kalari girl, who had slowly become Do-hyun's friend despite her initial terror, was now huddled with 6 other students in a locked dormitory room, listening to inhuman sounds in the corridor outside. Through the small window, she could see shadows, moving with impossible speed. The Void Runners were the size of large wolves, but they moved like liquid darkness. Their 6 legs could grip any surface, allowing them to run along walls and ceilings with equal ease. "They're testing the door," whispered Ryu Seojun. The crystalline being's form was dim with fear, and stress fractures covered his surface. Horrible scraping sound came from the walls. The nightmare wraiths were trying to phase through the barrier, but the dormitory's emergency shielding was holding them back. Barely. "The shields won't last much longer," said one of the Vortani students. Her gaseous form was compressed tight with terror inside her environmental suit. That's when they heard familiar footsteps in the corridor. "Hey there," came Do-hyun's voice, calm and conversational. "You guys look hungry, but these students probably won't taste very good. Wrong biochemistry." Han Ji-woo pressed her face to the window and saw something that would haunt her dreams for years to come. Do-yun was walking slowly down the corridor, completely exposed, talking to the Void Runners as if they were neighborhood dogs. "I know what you are," he continued, his voice carrying clearly through the door. "Pack hunters from a high-gravity world. You're used to prey that runs when it sees you. But I'm not running. The Void Runners had stopped their assault on the dormitory door. All 6 creatures were now focused on the human, their predatory instincts trying to process this strange new threat. "You're confused," Do-Yun observed. "I don't smell like prey. I'm not showing fear responses, and I'm approaching instead of fleeing. Your instincts are telling you that something's wrong." Through the command center's security cameras, Director Ido and Captain Nam watched in fascination and horror as Do-Hyun slowly backed down the corridor, drawing the creatures away from the trapped students. "He's using himself as bait," Captain Nam breathed. "More than that," said Dr. Bay, who had arrived at the command center. "Look at how he's moving. He's triggering their chase instincts while positioning himself between them and escape routes. He's hurting them." On the screen, Do-Yun had reached a junction in the corridor. The Void Runners were following him, but they had spread out to surround him. In any normal situation, this would be the end. Instead, Do-Yun smiled. "There's something you should know about humans," he said conversationally. "We didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by being the biggest or strongest predators." He pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. Emergency blast doors slammed shut on either side of the corridor, trapping the Void Runners in a small section with him. "We got there by being smarter." The confined space changed everything. The Void Runners' pack tactics became a disadvantage as they got in each other's way. Do-Yun moved with fluid precision, using the corridor walls and his superior agility to stay out of their reach while guiding them toward a maintenance hatch. "Security Team Delta, this is Control," Captain Nam spoke into his communicator. "The human has corralled the Void Runners in Section C-12. Move in with containment equipment." "Sir," came the confused reply. "Are you saying the student captured them?" Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Do-Hyun's predictions had proven accurate. The plasma worms had indeed moved toward the main power junction, just as he had anticipated. Security teams, forewarned, were able to set up containment fields before the creatures could cause catastrophic damage. The nightmare wraiths proved more challenging, but Do-Hyun's analysis of their phase shift patterns allowed the security teams to predict where they would materialize and trap them accordingly. By dawn, the crisis was over. All the escaped creatures had been contained and no one had been seriously injured. The students who had been trapped in the dormitory were safe, though they would need extensive psychological counseling. In the aftermath, as station personnel began assessing the damage and filing reports, a crowd gathered in the main assembly hall. Director O had called an emergency meeting to address the human situation once and for all. Professor Shin Yunbi from the Cultural Studies Department stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from every species on the station. "What we witnessed tonight," she began, "forces us to confront our assumptions about humanity and about predators in general." She activated a holographic display showing security footage from the crisis. Lee Do-Hyun faced creatures that our best-trained security officers couldn't handle, but he didn't defeat them through violence or superior strength. He defeated them by understanding them. The footage showed Do-Hyun calmly analyzing the creature's behavior and predicting their movements. For millions of years, we've believed that predators were inherently evil, creatures driven only by hunger and aggression. But humans show us something different. They're predators who learn to think, to plan, to cooperate. And most importantly, they're predators who learn to choose. In the audience, Han Ji-woo sat with her fellow students. Her fear of Do-Hyun hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something else. Respect, perhaps. or understanding. Do-hyun could have stayed safe in the evacuation zones, Professor Shin continued. No one would have blamed him, but when he saw others in danger, he chose to help. He used abilities that evolution gave him for hunting, and instead used them for protection. Kim Soo-young raised her hand. But, Professor, how do we coexist with beings who are so dangerous? The same way humans coexist with their own predatory nature, Professor Shin replied. Through choice, through education, and through understanding. That strength can be used to protect rather than to harm. Director O stood up from his seat. Effective immediately, Galactic Academy will be implementing a new xenobiology curriculum. We will study not just what predators are, but what they can choose to become. He looked directly at Do-hyun, who was sitting quietly in the back row. Mr. Lee, would you be willing to help us develop this program? Do-hyun looked surprised. Me? I'm just a student. I don't really understand why everyone thinks Earth animals are so scary. The innocent comment sparked a wave of nervous laughter through the assembly. Mr. Lee, Director O said with a smile, that attitude is exactly why we need your help. 3. Months later, the Academy's new Deathworld ecology program was in full swing. Students from across the galaxy,